Daughter talks with her mother at the kitchen table before going to work. The Memphis woman at home on the phone with her sister mid-morning. An hour later, Daisy Taylor was dead on the side of the road in Arkansas. More than 4 years later, her case remains unsolved. But the local 24i team has uncovered new information that may help investigators solve this case.
I want this case to be solved.
It's a plea for help from a still grieving daughter. Her mother was found on a stretch of road near Marion, Arkansas.
Seeing her smile, talking to her. My mom worked 2 jobs, went to church on Sundays.
Trinita Dotson says, as far as she knows, her mother had no enemies, no one with an axe to grind, no unpaid debts, no bad blood with relatives, nothing which would cause someone to kill her violently.
There was a body laying on a stretcher, and her head was facing toward us. She was laying face up, and that's all it took for me to see. I could see her hair, and I just lost it.
Journey back with me to November 2nd, 2012. 56-year-old healthcare worker Daisy Taylor was in her Raleigh apartment. According to investigators, Taylor's sister called her at her home and spoke with her around 10 in the morning. An hour or so later, a worker with the Crittenden County road crew found Taylor's body in a ditch. She had been shot 3 times. Investigators say she was murdered right where she was found.
There was 3 gunshots, one in the right shoulder, one on her hand, and one in her head. At first, she was a Jane Doe. We had no way of knowing who she was.
But there was one big murder clue. It was her car. About an hour and a half after her body was found here. The car was found here in South Memphis near Danny Thomas and Crump. It had been set on fire. The interior burned. Blood, fingerprints, physical evidence, everything gone up in smoke. Investigators are still stumped.
To be completely frank, you shoot someone in the head, that's you want to kill them.
Where do we stand on this case right now?
Right now, we've not received any further leads.
Who all did you all seek out to interview?
Well, of course, our first interview was with the individual that found the body. You know, it's been shown through several investigations over the years that a lot of times the one who reports it knows more about it than, in this particular case, it wasn't the incident. Then we began to look at people that knew her through friendships, especially intimate relationships. Started exploring those avenues. And then you begin to look at family members and neighbors and that kind of thing.
Could this possibly be a real-life case of how to get away with murder?
Anything's possible.
And while there is no physical evidence to lead to Daisy Taylor's killer, there is this newly released video investigators are releasing to me. It's the car they believe the killer was driving. The only problem? A hornet's nest on the camera's lens is stopping detectives from getting the tag number. They need your help catching the killer. Take another look at the car.
You can see the victim's car pass in front of the video and actually park to where they burned it, and that there was a second car behind it. Hopefully, in the perfect world, somebody will say, we suspected this individual, this just confirms it for me.
Plus, there is this. What does your gut instinct tell you about the case?
My gut instinct tells me it's going to be someone that knows her and knew her well.
I want to know why. What did my mom do to someone for them to have done her that way? Then to leave her laying on the street like she was a dog.
Now, investigators say this case is still open, and there is a reward for information leading to an arrest. If you have any information about the newly released video of the car or the Daisy Taylor case, period, you're asked to call authorities. The number right there on your screen, 870-702-2000. Again, that's 870-702-2000. We also posted the phone number on localmemphis.com. Just click on this story.
You at 10. His death sparked a movement. Nearly 60 years later, a small Mississippi town is still healing as the memory of Emmett Till lives on.
Well, an African-American teen murdered in Mississippi is being remembered nearly 60 years after his death. The Emmett Till Interpretive Center just opened its doors in Sumner, Mississippi. That's about 100 miles south of Memphis. And his death is often credited with catapulting the civil rights movement into high gear. I recently had a chance to visit the center and speak to people in the town. They're still trying to heal. Supporters say Till's story may be painful, but must not be forgotten. Now, as you watch this, I want to tell you that you may find some of Till's images in the story disturbing. Take a look. Sumner, Mississippi is a small town, population 400. Emmett Till was not murdered there, but it is where his killers were tried and where tourists and school students will now come to learn how his death contributed to the civil rights movement.
There were a lot of Emmett Tills throughout Mississippi, throughout the South, throughout the country.
Years after his death, folks who live there still find it difficult to talk about the incident. Others question if the interpretive center is even necessary.
Mamie Till had the boldness to say, no, we're not just going to bury him in Mississippi.
The center's director explains why it's so important.
When we understand our history and we understand the systems that allowed this type of thing to happen, we understand how we can move forward.
Our story begins in the summer of 1955. Emmett Till was 14 years old when he traveled from Chicago to Money, Mississippi. He came to visit his uncle, a preacher in the Mississippi Delta. Just 2 days after he arrived, Till skipped church to come here, Bryant's Grocery. A trip to buy candy went terribly wrong when he whistled at Carolyn Bryant. She was white and the store owner's wife. That whistle stirred up racism in the Deep South and sounded the alarm for a national civil rights movement. You see, in the Deep South, it was forbidden for black men to talk to white women. It was forbidden, really, for black men to even look at white women. But Emmett Till, he was a boy who knew nothing about the forbidden fruits of Mississippi. Hours after Till whistled at Carolyn Bryant, her husband, Roy Bryant, and his half-brother, J.W. Milam, decided the teen should be taught a lesson. In the middle of the night, they burst into his uncle's home, put a sheet over Till's head, and threw him into the back of a pickup truck. They drove Till to a barn in Drew, Mississippi. They beat and pistol whipped him. Next, they drove him to a shed behind Milam's home, which used to sit here in Glendora, Mississippi. They beat him some more, gouged out one of his eyes before shooting him in the head. They tied a 70-pound cotton gin fan around his neck and threw his body into the Tallahatchie River. Days later, fishermen found Till's body, bruised and disfigured, only recognizable by a ring on his finger. Roy Bryant and Milam were indicted for murder. The courthouse was packed for their trial. The all-white male jury acquitted them, said they did not believe white men should be given life in prison for killing a black man.
Those men who sat in that chair didn't think they were doing anything wrong.
Back in Chicago, Emmett Till's mother requested an open casket funeral. She wanted the world to see what happened to her son. In the weeks after his funeral, activists used the murder as a rallying cry for civil rights protest. Fast forward to 2015, the Emmett Till Interpretive Center walked students through every step of the teen's story and the impact of his death.
It's a powerful thing to do, is to put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Yeah, it was powerful indeed, you know, and it was truly amazing, Brandon, to retrace those steps. I mean, when we stepped into that barn where he was beaten, it was still there, exactly the same, except that they had taken up the floor where they beat him. And I mean, my photographer and I, Whitney Gramlin, we went and we stood on the exact bank where they pulled him out and where they had that cotton gin and where they got it from. It was just really amazing. You relived what he went through. So it was pretty amazing.
And just some, ugly history. But we were talking before the newscast and really over the last few weeks as you've been investing so much time and effort into this. And you say you came to find that people are still tight-lipped about this. I mean, was it hard to find people to talk about it?
Well, they would talk off camera.
Yeah.
No one wanted to talk on camera. I'm talking people as young as 20 years old to a man who was 80 years old who actually worked on Brian and Milam's truck that they threw Emmett Till into. And he was afraid to talk because he said, my 85-year-old neighbor said, why are they bringing this up? They should just let it die. So he wouldn't even talk to us on camera. But listen, tomorrow night on Local 24 News at 10, the story of an apology and the beginning of reconciliation. Good Morning America co-anchor Robin Roberts says her parents instilled the 3 Ds in her: determination, discipline, and the Lord. And as I learned from sitting down with her for a one-on-one interview, she's worked on all 3 Ds to get her up and down the court of life, making it easy for her to score 3-pointers continuously. We begin with a handshake.
Nice to meet you.
Katina Rankin.
WSMV alum.
Yes. Then sat down to chat.
Oh, that feels good.
When you look at Robin Roberts, you may just see a national news anchor on television.
Oh, we spent a lot of time there. I don't have to pay taxes yet, right?
But Robin Roberts, as I found out, is much more.
So what happened was,
Some call her a pillar of strength, others a tower of hope.
just slowly continued down the river.
Not only has Robin reported news, she's become the news after fighting breast cancer in 2007.
I have breast cancer, as my family here knows, my family at home knows.
She underwent surgery, 8 rounds of chemotherapy, followed by radiation. When you got that diagnosis, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
When you hear those words, you have cancer, you think you're going to die.
Then, 5 years later, another diagnosis. 2012, you find out that you have MDS, a disease of the bone marrow. I know that you are a Christian and a woman of faith. Was your faith shaken?
That is a very good question and a fair question. Was I angry? Yes, but you know what? He can take it. He can take it. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. But to say my faith was shaken? No, I never lost faith. I got mad.
When you were diagnosed both times, did you say, I am a competitor, I am going to win, and I am going to kick cancer's butt?
I'm not kidding, you're good. Yes, I faced it as an opponent. I said, cancer, you are an opponent, and I'm going to beat you.
It was through her victory over cancer that Robin also made another bold statement, letting the world know her sexual orientation. You posted on Facebook, at this moment, I am at peace and filled with joy and gratitude. I am grateful to God, my doctors and nurses for my restored health. I am grateful for my entire family, my longtime girlfriend Amber, and friends as we prepare to celebrate a glorious new year together. It was the first time that you had ever mentioned your sexual orientation. How difficult was it to tell your truth?
It wasn't difficult at all because everybody who meant anything in my life had known for decades.
Robin is not just a cancer survivor, and she's not just an anchor, an athlete playing basketball and tennis. She's a journalist, a real person that feels the hurt and pain of the community around her. That was evident in her reporting of Hurricane Katrina in her hometown and state, past Christiane, Mississippi. As a journalist, you see death and destruction almost every day. But you started crying, you wept. Where did that emotion come from?
My mother was unable for health reasons to evacuate. So that emotion came from knowing that people were watching that morning, feeling what I had just felt. People were watching, wondering about their loved ones. And I knew the pain that they were going through.
As our interview came to a conclusion, I had just a few more questions for Robin. Robin Roberts is
Blessed.
My biggest fear is.
I'm not afraid anymore. Awesome. I'm sorry. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not fearful. Fearful, you're making my eyelashes come off before I speak.
Sorry, don't do it
Okay.
Blank brings me the most joy.
People bring me the most joy.
God is.
Good all the time.
Well, Let me just say, from one Mississippi woman to another Mississippi woman, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to chat with me. And as you phrased on ESPN, I'll leave you with this. Go on with your bad self. God bless you, Robin. Thank you.
And indeed, she is bad in a great way. Just a humble spirit, a wonderful person, Brandon.
Well, just what a wonderful encouragement. What an encouragement to hear her talk about still feeling blessed.
Yes.
Still feeling that God's favored, even through the trial that she's been through. I got to ask, though,
Okay.
she celebrates being from past Christiana, Mississippi. She's been up in New York a while. Is she still feeling that Southern Belle feel from her, though?
Let me tell you, a true Southern belle. You know, she started out working in Mississippi. She worked in Nashville. She worked in Atlanta.
Wow.
Her roots are in the South, so there's definitely a tie to right here in the Mid-South. And listen, if you at home want to learn more about Robin Roberts, just go to our website, localmemphis.com, and then click on this story. There you'll see our full interview. Plus, you can learn about her 3 books, From the Heart, 7 Rules to Live By, From the Heart, 8 Rules to Live By, and everybody's got something. Also, Robin and I talked about a lot of stuff during that one-on-one interview, like how much she loves Memphis. You can see our entire video just by going to localmemphis.com.